Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon. It's great to have you here. My name is Lawrence Haddad. I'm the chair of Action Track 1 and executive director of the Global Alliance for Improved Nutrition, or GAIN. And you are here at Accessing Nutrition Through the Workplace, which is one of the affiliated sessions. It's co-organized by GAIN and the government of Bangladesh and other organizations. And we're very pleased to have you here. Now, this summit has really raised the profile of livelihoods and jobs, and the fact that the food system is one of the systems in the world and in nations and in districts and in communities where it seems to be acceptable to have low and poor living conditions, working conditions. It seems to be acceptable to not have good nutrition programs and to not take care of workers. The statistics are pretty shocking. So I'm very pleased that there is an entire action track that's dedicated to these issues, which is Action Track 4. And this work you're seeing this morning, it is very much a collaboration between Action Track 1 and Action Track 4. And it's essentially saying, if there are about 1.3 billion people whose jobs depend on the food system in some way or another, how well are we treating them? Not very well at the moment. So we need to do something about that. And I'm talking about in public sector employers, as well as private sector employers. This session focuses on the private sector. What can the private sector do to improve the working conditions of its employees? Well, improving their access to safe and nutritious food, improving opportunities for safe breastfeeding, for promoting food safety, for helping nutrition messaging about what is a healthy diet and what is good nutrition, and the importance of breastfeeding. These are things that employees, whether they're in the public or the private sector, can do. And it's important they do it because you know just as well as me the statistics. 1 in 3 people is malnourished, and if they're malnourished as adults and as workers, they're going to be less productive. They're going to be they're going to be absent more. They're going to be, if they're present, they're not going to be as effective. There's going to be a higher level of staff turnover, and there's going to be just a lot of illness and a lot of disrupted production, and even more accidents. But perhaps more importantly than any of those sort of instrumental things, very fortunate to have one of the ILO colleagues with us today. And I remember talking to an ILO colleague a couple of years ago about this issue. And he said to me, actually, those statistics are great, Lawrence, but if a company and if an employer provides a workforce nutrition program, it says to the employee, my employer cares about me. And that is really a profound feeling and a profound sense they get from that program. So without further ado, I'm really happy to introduce this session, welcome everybody. We've got a great panel. We've got a great panel. But before we do that, let's hear from our Government of Bangladesh colleagues. And let me introduce our speaker, who's going to be joining us by video because he's currently in a meeting with the Prime Minister. And this is the Honorable Secretary for the Ministry of Labour and Employment, at the Government's Republic of Bangladesh, people of the Government of Bangladesh.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's my pleasure to be with you today. The Government of Bangladesh is honored to co-host this affiliated session at the pre-summit of the United Nations Food System Summit, together with the Global Alliance for Improved Nutrition, as workforce nutrition is critically important to the well-being of our people and economy. Government of Bangladesh, under the leadership of Honorable Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, is committed to ensure food and nutrition security for all. The people of Bangladesh is celebrating the birth centenary of our father of the nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. Just immediate after our independence, Bangladesh Parliament adopted and enacted the constitution which gave more importance on food and nutrition. In its article 18.1, it has been clearly mentioned that the state shall regard the raising of the level of nutrition and the improvement of public health as among its primary duties. In our Vision 2021, National Plan of Action of Nutrition and National Food and Nutrition Security Policy 2020, Government of Bangladesh has highlighted the importance of workforce nutritional for productivity and economic growth. Though the country has made tremendous progress in nutritional outcomes, we are still striving to multi-sectoral stakeholders' actions to combat the challenges. Estimates show that in our country, 39.9% of productive aged women are anemic, and despite high rates of undernutrition, we also see an emerging problem of overweight and obesity, with 22% of women are overweight and 18% of men are overweight. We know that for 1 USD of investment in nutrition give 16 USD in return. Clearly, it is an issue that must be addressed if we are, as a global community, to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. In Bangladesh, we have already taken great strides to ensure the health and well-being of the workers of the manufacturing companies, as well as workers working in informal sectors. As we all know that Bangladesh ready-made garments sector is vitally important, as this sector has created employment opportunities for an estimated 3.5 million workers, of whom 61% are women. This sector is also one of the vital contributors to GDP growth. Clearly, nutrition is a driver for economic growth and a win-win for the workers, businesses, and the country's economy. I do strongly believe that this session here at the pre-summit will advance this commitment making, and I look forward to hearing today from those important companies that have joined us. These companies have the opportunity to lead the way with their workforce, nutrition communities, commitments, and to set the bar high for other private sector commitments. Together, government, business communities, national and international partners can advance workforce nutrition in ways that will create a better world for everyone, everywhere. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister, for those messages. Three things I picked up. $1 billion in lost productivity. That is a huge amount of money, given the Bangladesh's low middle income status. I also picked up that the ready-to-made garment industry is a very important site for workforce nutrition. So reminding us that it's not just about workers in the food system, it's workers everywhere. And the third point I picked up is that the government of Bangladesh is willing to create an enabling environment to help the private sector do better and do more on workforce nutrition. So without further ado, let's move to our panel, our excellent panel. We have 4 great speakers from 4 different backgrounds. And the big question that we're sort of posing to the panel is why do we need private sector engagement to combat global malnutrition? And how important could the workforce be as a place for nutrition improvement? So without further ado, let me pass to Gerda Verberg, who is the UN Assistant Secretary General, coordinator of the Scaling Up Nutrition, SUN, movement, and a UN Food System Summit Advisory Committee member. Gerda, over to you.
Thank you very much, Laurence. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Food systems are bringing big problems together. The challenges for people's food and nutrition, but also the challenges for our planet's food and nourishment and treatment. And the outcomes of these food systems and this system is a step towards it, need to be about people and about action. Now, workforce nutrition is a great action in order to improve nutrition. It has been said already by the Minister of Bangladesh and by Laurence Haddad. but it's not the solution. It's only a step towards the solution. But let me explain why we as a movement believe so much in workforce nutrition. Many workers are malnourished, and if you are malnourished, you're physically not possible to produce well. Your cognitive opportunities are not well enough developed to find smart solutions on the spot and during your work. So it's never too late to invest in nutrition, and it should happen. Also, why should it happen? Because it's a win-win. I have talked to employers who said, we are investing in workforce nutrition. And I asked them, what is the net investment? And they said, we don't want to talk about it because the positive, the plus, is higher than the investment. And if we look at the better productivity, how happy people are, how proud they are to work here, we only want to do more. So it's not the solution, but it's a decent way forward. And included in the workforce nutrition, it is crucial that there is decent maternity leave, because in too many companies, we see that women get fired as soon as they have to give birth to a baby, let alone that they are allowed to breastfeed their children in a decent place in the workplace. And this has to happen. Include not only healthy food that is available for everyone, provided by the employer, but also make sure that you have maternity leave, breastfeeding, a safe place for mothers to breastfeed their children and give their children the best start in life. Please also take care of the family of your employees by a health insurance, and then observe how proud they are. So what has to happen from my perspective? One, companies go to your international confederations or national confederations and put this on the agenda. How can we be part of the solution when it comes to people and action related to food and nutrition? We want to be part of this solution nationally and internationally, so that you're all not only defending your own interest, but making a concrete contribution. It is indeed food and non-food, because garment, but also other industries are desperate to take better care of their employees. This is not the only thing. The ILO representative here need to negotiate better with employers, because in the end, every employee wants to have a decent enough income to take care of his or her children and family, him or herself. Don't want to be dependent or stay dependent on these kind of conditions provided by the employer. So that is the next step, and continue to think about the next step, but as an in-between, as a part, an important step on the pathway to final solutions. It is an important one. We will support you wherever is needed, and we will be a strong advocate together with GAIN, the government of Bangladesh, and everyone who can observe this as part of the way to solutions that serve people and our planet alike. Thank you very much. Back to you, Laurence.
Thank you, Gerda. And the Sun Business Network have been very strong champions of this issue, and we're very grateful to you for that. Gerda, thank you for reminding us that this is not a magic silver bullet. This is part of a network or a cluster or a package of solutions that have to operate in systems to have an impact. Thank you for reminding us that maternity leave is a very important part of this, and thank you for reminding us that workforce nutrition programs can improve everywhere, in every country, in every sector. And I think you also mentioned that the benefit cost ratios are high. It may cost you $1 to get one of these programs going, but you will get $3 to $6 back in terms of hard bottom line cash. But the feeling your employees will give you is priceless. Let me pass it over now to Alette van Leur, who's the director of the Sectoral Policies Department at the ILO. Alette, we're delighted to have you here with us. Over to you.
Thank you so much for inviting the ILO to this very important a panel and side event on access to nutrition through the workplace. The current pandemic has had a devastating impact on the world of work. Massive job losses and income losses have pushed an estimated additional 108 million workers into poverty. The pandemic significantly sets us back in our fight against poverty and also in our efforts towards achieving many of the other sustainable development goals. Poverty means food insecurity. With loss of livelihood and rising food prices, many households are unable to access the quantity and quality of food they need for a healthy life. As we all know, food security has multiple dimensions. Availability of and access to food is intrinsically linked to the world of work. Agri-food workers ensure the world's food supplies. We have seen that also during the current pandemic, while workers' incomes generate the purchasing power to access food. Addressing the immediate needs of the most vulnerable is absolutely critical. But in building longer-term resilience, the focus needs to be on increasing quality employment and incomes for the poor. In particular, ensuring access to decent work with its 4 interrelated pillars, which are the rights at work, productive employment, social protection, and social dialogue, needs to be central to strategies to achieve food security and nutrition. We know that agricultural growth, when led by growth in labor productivity, can have a particularly strong effect on poverty reduction. So generating decent and sustainable jobs and improving working conditions in the agro-food sector, where most of the poor are, can improve agricultural output, incomes, and have a particularly positive impact on reducing poverty and food insecurity. For example, in Bangladesh, we have just heard, significant progress in poverty reduction has been attributed to growth in aquaculture. It has led also to an increasing fish consumption, including among the poor. And that said, while saving many from starvation and hunger, the sector expansion did not always result in quality jobs, leaving especially waged aquaculture workers struggling to meet their ends. Focusing on the agro-food sector is of course not enough. We should strengthen efforts towards ensuring decent working conditions, decent and stable incomes, rights at work, and social protection in all sectors of the economy. We know that poor nutrition affects not only the health, we have just heard that from Gerda also, that poor nutrition not only affects health, but also livelihoods and productivity. In this context, social protection can play a critical role. Social protection includes also maternity protection. Nationally defined social protection floors can ensure access to healthcare and basic income security. They can help the most marginalized in the societies to enjoy their economic and social rights, and if augmented by public health and nutrition interventions, they can help ensure access to healthy diets. Last month, ILO constituents adopted the call to action for a human-centered recovery from the pandemic. The call to action outlines measures that can help strengthen labor and social protection, support sustainable enterprises, and has rights at work at its heart. Such action will be particularly important to ensuring that we move towards an inclusive, sustainable, and resilient future of work with decent work for all, which is fundamental to the eradication of poverty and hunger. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alette. Really rousing words for us. Thank you for stressing the essential nature, the essential existence of decent work. And we very much hope that we can embed nutrition as a concept within the concept and reality of decent work. Decent work should include decent nutrition. We thank you also for reminding us that the fragility of the workforce was stressed by COVID-19. It's shown us what happens when frontline workers, especially, get ill or get sick or can't do their jobs. the food system and many other systems shut down. Families who rely on breadwinners and rice winners are plunged into poverty. And as you said, 108 million workers plunged into poverty. And so we need to really protect and respect and support frontline workers and people who work in the front line of food systems and health systems and other systems. They are usually the ones who are the most vulnerable. Sunny Verheyz, who's the WBCSD chair, he's the co-founder and group CEO of Olam International, and one of the leading companies in many spaces, but in this workforce nutrition space, he is one of the leaders. And I would like to welcome him to the stage. Sunny.
Thank you so much, Lawrence. I've had the privilege of participating in a few sessions at the UN Food Systems pre-summit, but I'm particularly inspired and privileged to be participating in this one for access to nutrition through the workplace. And this is because, as Lawrence and the other speakers before me have alluded to, private sector employment constitutes 71% of the world's employment. And therefore, this intervention of improving nutrition at the workplace for the workforce is probably the single biggest lever that we can pull. As chair of the WBCSD, we are a CEO-led membership coalition of 200 global companies. We employ, just in this 200 global companies, 19 million people with revenues of about $8.5 trillion. Just imagine the power of the rest of the world and the rest of the private sector in terms of what workplace and workforce nutrition programs can do to catalyze workplace nutrition. So that's the importance of this. At Olam, we employ about 90,000 people. And our goal is that by 2030, we will have workforce nutrition programs accessible to all of our workforce. But more importantly, Olam works with 5.16 million farmers. In 2020, we had reached about 200 of those farmers who supply to us. And these are all smallholder farmers. And as we know, they produce 71% of the world's food. But 55% of them have malnutrition or undernutrition, and almost 60% of them live below the poverty line. So it is incumbent on us to have a healthy supply chain to make sure that the nutrition and health related interventions for these group of farmers we address. I want to give you some quick examples in terms of how we are doing this. So firstly, last year we served about 73 billion servings, billion with a B, of food staples. This includes wheat flour, and wheat flour, as you know, goes into biscuit manufacturing, bread making, or it goes into noodle manufacturing, pasta manufacturing. So these are basic staples. And we have fortified that with vitamins and micronutrients. We fortified rice with micronutrients and vitamins along with DSM. And we also fortified edible oil. These are the basic staples that people and consumers in Africa use, and we served about 73 billion servings. Secondly, in our own workplace, we have, so in Indonesia, for example, we used to have in our canteens for our employees, self-service buffets, but we have now shifted to a pre-packed box, which is obviously provided free, of nutritious and balanced food. And we have changed the shift patterns in terms of the way the shifts are, so that we have less people in the canteen at a point in time, which also helps maintain better hygiene and health standards as well. In Côte d'Ivoire, we have, through our extension officers in the cashew supply chain, provided vitamin A fortification supplements, as well as deworming tablets to the children of our cashew supply chain farmers. As another example. We also try and amplify our own efforts by working with NGOs and civil society. So in Côte d'Ivoire and Vietnam, we work with the National Red Cross Society to provide clean, healthy drinking water, sanitation, hygiene, as well as health education for the communities and the landscapes in which we operate. So as a result of all of this, in 2021, we were recognized by the Alliance for Nutrition as a lighthouse leader in impacting the workforce nutrition of our employees and our farmer supply chains and the landscapes we operate.
Sunny, are you finished or did I lose you?
I finished,
Okay.
Lawrence. Yeah.
Thank you, Sunny. That was great. We were the Workforce Nutrition Alliance, which is hosted by GAIN and the Consumer Goods Forum. We're delighted to award Olam with the Lighthouse recognition. And I think you've shown us why we did that. You've given us so many great examples of how to do workforce nutrition. There's no, you need to fit the way you do it to the context and the needs of the employees. And thank you for reminding us that healthy supply chains are not only the right thing to do, they're the smart thing to do. So that was wonderful. Let me now pass over to Wei-Chan Chan. Wei-Chan is the managing director of the Consumer Goods Forum, and has been a really strong partner for GAIN and many others in this space. Wei-Chan, over to you.
Yeah, hi everyone. Hope you can hear me well, and it's good to see you all. And thank you very much, Lawrence, for the introduction. As Lawrence said, I represent the Consumer Goods Forum, and for those who don't know what the Consumer Goods Forum is, it's essentially an industry platform of some 400 members around the world. And our task is to work together in a pre-competitive basis to try and find ways to solve our mission statement, which is essentially better lives through better business. So that's what we do. It's driven by CEOs, so therefore you get lots of attention and lots of action as it relates to any plans that we might develop. And we're very proud to be a partner with GAIN on this very important initiative. From a private sector point of view, I think it's worthwhile recognizing that we understand as CGF, Consumer Goods Forum, the workplace as a very optimal place for a point of intervention to contribute to the improved health and well-being of individuals. As you can imagine, people spend a lot of time at work, and so therefore it must be a critical focal point where action can be taken to ensure that nutrition is improved. And employers, and we represent quite a few of them, often struggle with with what to do. How do you begin this process? What steps do you take? And where can you access information and knowledge? And these are the things that some employers often struggle with. Obviously, you have a wide range of employers. Some are more advanced than others, but generally, that's what happens. And so from what we do, we actually offer tools and resources to help people, especially these employers, so they can make the process actually very simple and easy. And our work, in fact, covers 4 main pillars of workforce nutrition, which are namely healthy food at work, nutrition education, nutrition health tracks, and breastfeeding support. So those are the 4 things that we cover, and we provide best practices, a simple playbook for employers to use so that they can access and therefore implement it in their own organizations. And through this Workforce Nutrition Alliance, we aim to positively impact some 3 million employees in their organizations and supply chains by 2025. So that's quite a broad number. Obviously, it just begins to touch the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the total population of the workforce of the world, but nevertheless, one has to start somewhere. So that's the aspiration that we have, to try to impact this many people. Now, the role of the private sector can be quite huge in this. As I said earlier on, we represent consumer goods retailers and brands, and these are important employers around the world and important to their communities and to their employees. But it's obviously not the whole workforce itself, but nevertheless, this is a significant part of that workforce. And there's a clear case for the industry to play an active role in this regard, in terms of how to ensure that employees live healthier lives. As we know, some 60% of the world's population spends 1/3 of their time at work during their adult life, which is quite a substantial part. So as I mentioned earlier on, it's a key focal point for intervention, and that's why we're very much involved in this. And we understand, as a CGF anyway, and our member companies understand, that there is value, as Gerda said earlier on, in investing in the well-being of employees, especially around their nutritional health, because poor diets lead to low concentration, absenteeism, staff turnover, low productivity, accidents, etc. And so the business case can actually, there's a very strong business case. I think that's the important thing to recognize. And also, poorly fed employees cost employers up to $850 billion with a B, $1 billion a year, which is quite substantial. So therefore, it all adds to the economic equation why this is quite an important thing to do. So it's not just the responsible thing to do, but it also leads to healthier business, and it's a clear win-win, as some of our colleagues on the panel mentioned earlier on. There's a win-win for employees and a win-win for employers as well. And the global workforce has never been in such an urgent need to improve the health and well-being. So we need to act very, very quickly. And as we all know, COVID-19 has not only put an increased spotlight on these global health challenges, it has also accelerated people's health consciousness. People are much more aware of these things now. And so therefore, time is to act. Time now is to act, rather. So people across the globe can expect the private sector and should expect the private sector to play their part and take action. And my hope is that the CGF member companies will follow the example set by some of our members, such as Unilever and also Olam, as I mentioned earlier on, to adopt some of these workforce nutrition programs around the world to drive healthier lives for healthier business and to create a better world. So it's an absolutely critical thing to do. We're proud to be joining forces together, and we hope that we can make an impact on this absolutely critical topic. Thank you.
Thank you, Echana. We are very proud to be working with you too, and thank you for reminding us that sometimes these workforce programs, nutrition programs, can be seen to be quite daunting and quite resource intensive. And I think the work that GAIN and Sun and the CGF are doing is trying to make it easier to do the right thing and the smart thing for companies. And thank you for reminding us that we're essentially working with the grain here, where we're working not against the grain, but with the grain. This really is in the interests of companies to do this, much as the efforts to reduce food loss and food waste are in companies' interest to do this, as well as in the planet's interest to do this. And you mentioned the fact that the target is 3 million employees right now, but I suspect that could really catch on. That's the first way station. That's the toe in the water. But my sense is that if we can show how these workforce nutritions really pay off to the companies, and that the costs of setting them up are not prohibitive, I think we'll get to the space now in 5-10 years where people are talking about this much as they talk about food loss and food waste today. Let's go to the second panel. I'd like to thank you very much, first panel. Let's move to the second panel, which focuses on what Wei Chan said. I mean, how can we do this? If you're a company thinking about doing this, or any employer thinking about doing this, what are the tools and resources you have available to set up your nutrition commitments and establish a program? So we have two speakers who are going to give us a couple of examples of how to do this. The first is Deborah Ash, and Deborah is a senior technical advisor at Alive and Thrive, and she's based in India, and she's going to talk to us about how to enable breastfeeding in the workplace. Deborah, over to you. Deborah, are you there, or maybe muted?
Yes, thank you very much, Lawrence. As my fellow panelists have shared, there are inspiring and successful workforce nutrition actions underway and being scaled up through dynamic collaborative efforts. These workforce nutrition programs are positively impacting the health and well-being of millions of employees. So I would like to remind us of the evidence-based 4 pillars of the Workforce Nutrition Alliance. And these are healthy food at work, nutrition education, nutrition health checks, and breastfeeding support. This 4th pillar will be the focus of my remarks today. Why the need for breastfeeding support in the workplace? What are the benefits? We know from robust global evidence and widely followed WHO, UNICEF, infant and young child nutrition guidelines that breastfeeding exclusively for 6 months and continually up to 2 years of age provides optimal nutrition for infants and children and has tremendous positive benefits for the health and well-being of both the mother and the child. For the child, this leads to healthy growth and development, the building of a strong immune system, which has a proven impact on maintaining good health and reduction in infant and child illnesses, we know that not breastfeeding can negatively affect the health and well-being of mothers and children. Supporting breastfeeding in the workplace helps mothers when they return to work to sustain these good infant and child feeding practices. In many countries, governments, the private sector, the UN, and NGOs are collaborating together to successfully enable working mothers to breastfeed. This also directly contributes to country commitments to achieve the nutrition targets of the Sustainable Development Goals. And how are they doing this? By two very straightforward and practical measures taking place in the workplace. And these are making available breastfeeding space within or close to the workplace, and the second one being providing time for nursing breaks, while at the same time strengthening the enabling environment by raising awareness on the importance and the benefits of workplace breastfeeding. A recent review of 22 workplace breastfeeding programs in 9 countries found that having dedicated breastfeeding space significantly increases the duration of breastfeeding and the ability to practice exclusive breastfeeding. Also, studies of these programs show benefits beyond nutritional advantages for the child, including improved productivity and reduced absenteeism and employee turnover. Breastfeeding reduces absenteeism in employees because their infants are ill less often. A very compelling example of at-scale workplace breastfeeding support is the Mothers at Work program in Bangladesh. This is a collaboration between UNICEF, the government of Bangladesh, ILO, and NGO partners, established now at more than 90 Better Work Bangladesh, BWB as they're referred to, partner factories, mostly in the ready-made garment sector. Employees are experiencing, in a short period of time, significant results in increased productivity, higher workforce retention, and lower absenteeism. This is tracked using simple success metrics and translates into substantial return on investment for business. In terms of a benefit cost estimate that we know of, the return on investment to support breastfeeding in the workplace has been estimated as a 3-to-1 ratio. But has been mentioned by colleagues on the panel, it is not only this business case perspective, it's also that employers are truly motivated to do more with workforce nutrition, since they see the impact on employee satisfaction and productivity, as well as reduction in healthcare costs. On a final note, based on the expanding body of evidence and programmatic experience, practical guidance and tools are now available to support employers to build effective workplace breastfeeding programs. There's a series of guidebooks, including one put out by the Workforce for Nutrition Alliance on breastfeeding support, a practical guide for employers to create breastfeeding-friendly workplaces. This was developed in a collaboration by Alive and Thrive and GAIN and other partners. As well, there are direct implementation and technical support mechanisms available to support employers as they establish and enhance workplace breastfeeding programs. Thank you.
Deborah, thank you. We are proud to have Alive and Thrive as a partner. Those of you who don't know Alive and Thrive, they're one of the gold standard initiatives and organizations in this space. They're young, I think maybe 10 years old, Deborah,
Yes.
but they have made a big impact in the space we work in, and we are very proud to work with them. And I think it's really important what Deborah said, and she said it's not that complicated in many ways. Create a safe, comfortable, secure breastfeeding space. Make sure you schedule your shifts so that there are nursing breaks, and make everybody aware of the importance and benefits. And some of the evidence you brought to bear is truly astounding. And Deborah, I thought you were based in India, but I understand you're based in the US. It's super early in the morning for you. Well, it's the middle of the night, really. So thank you so much for being with us, and that just shows your commitment. I'm not a morning person, so I particularly appreciate you being here with us. Thank you.
Sure, pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Yeah. Now let's turn to Anjali Ravi Kumar, who is the Global Sustainability Director at Health and Wellbeing. And he's going to give us some practical examples of workforce programs and a call to action for other industry partners. Anjali, over to you.
Thank you so much, Lawrence.
Awesome.
It's a real privilege to be with you all today to share Unilever's experience in investing in workforce nutrition. We've actually invested in workforce nutrition for over 20 years, and we've invested across countries, across work sites, farms, factories, offices, and more now are not just focusing on individuals, but on families as well. The first program I'd like to talk to you about is our Lamplighter program. It was started in 2001 as a preventive health program and had 3 core components: exercise, nutrition, and mental resilience. At its peak, Lamplighter reached over 80,000 employees, a little over half of our employee base, in 2019 across 75 countries. And we were able to achieve this scale on the back of some very impressive results. Lamplighter helped us reduce poor nutrition by 17%. It brought down hypertension by 16%. And these early results really encourage us to expand and create a well-being framework. And as part of this framework, we are committed to addressing some of the more vulnerable members of our supply chain. Lawrence pointed out in his initial address that these include members of our agricultural supply chain. So with GAIN in 2014 and IDH, we launched a nutritional security program called Seeds of Prosperity. And this program targeted plantation workers who are malnourished and therefore vulnerable to both infectious as well as non-communicable diseases. What started as a 9-week nutrition education module in one tea estate with 2,700 workers has today expanded to a year-long nutrition and access program. And we've onboarded 7 companies in this journey. We're targeting over 100 tea estates in 3 countries: India, Kenya, Malawi. And we're not just targeting 150,000 workers and smallholder farmers. We're also bringing their families into the fold of this program, and will therefore impact about 750,000 people. And again, the scale up was only possible because of some very impressive results we saw with respect to dietary diversification, a key component in improving the health status of these workers. I have to share that we also saw improvements in self-esteem and workers saying that they were proud to work with us, and improvements in loyalty. And all of these factors are really important to our relationship with suppliers. The third program that I'd like to talk to you about was conceived during COVID. You know that throughout the pandemic, Unilever has been sending its workforce into factories to produce soaps and sanitizers, essentials that help the rest of the world keep COVID at bay. But the fact of the matter is that many members of our workforce suffer from comorbidities, which put them at high risk of contracting COVID and suffering very badly. And so this challenge really inspired us to rethink our approach to employee health and well-being. And I'm happy to share a few elements of this refreshed approach. The first that you should know is nutrition is front and center of this approach. In fact, it starts with a nutritional self-assessment of our factory sites. And this scorecard has been provisioned by the Workforce Nutrition Alliance. So it's a key tool in our toolkit. And we are reformulating canteen menus. We're doing this embedding our future foods commitments, essentially foods that are good for you and good for the planet. We're also leveraging the talents of our Unilever Food Solutions chefs to make menus that are nutritionally diverse, healthy, and culturally appropriate. And then an element that I'm most excited about is the fact that we're leveraging technology to provide personalized coaching to our employees and extending these benefits to their family members. And we'll amplify this through lifestyle coaching and services such as Gym Pass in the factories where we are testing this, which is in Brazil and Mexico, some of the hardest hit countries. So I hope these examples serve to showcase how Unilever sees its commitment in workforce nutrition as an investment from which we've secured a very positive return, and we've had a very positive experience. We're really excited about the next phase of investment. We really believe that there's only more benefits to be had for everyone involved. Do join us, and I'd love to learn from your experiences as well.
Thank you so much. And I'm very sorry to introduce you with a he. I'm looking at my notes at the same time as I'm supposed to be looking at the screen. So thank you, Anjali. Apologies for that. And Unilever has been, you know, a real pioneer in this space, a real lamplighter itself. And I think the 3 points I picked up is the scale up can happen quite quickly, but you need some evidence that it's generating a return. Also, the criticality of workforce nutrition for developing really strong and good relationships with suppliers. And I imagine that that's even more important now, given the COVID disruptions that we have. And I thought it was really interesting how you are working with families of the employees as well, and not just assuming that somehow there will be a spillover to the families, but actually being very proactive about it. So thank you so much for that, and thank you for Unilever's leadership in this space. Gerda, we are at the end of the session. I'm handing it over to you to take us out. Back to you, Gerda.
Thank you very much, Laurence, and thank you all. I am very much inspired by this session. However, I also have a question. If the return ratio is so positive, and if it's so clear that workforce nutrition is a no regret, why does it take, for instance, to reach 3 million employees only by 2025? Won't it be possible to rethink and sit together and say, can we speed this up a little bit? And to the ILO, what needs to happen before every employer is convinced that investing in nutrition of its employees is supporting productivity, but also making sure that people are proud to work in that company or in that workplace, and that investing in the family is a way of doing good and creating more public goods and social goods. So I am very inspired by this session. Nevertheless, I am more convinced than ever that we need to look each other into the eyes, asking the questions, is this really the best we can deliver, given the big problems? And they are clear, both for people and for the planet. So I think this is one of the most important questions. Don't agree on doing something only within 5 years from now. Ask yourself always, can we speed it up? Can we do better? What should be the next step? Because a lot has to be done. But this morning I've learned a lot. I've taken notes. And it was a very good session. Thank you for all the participants. Thank you, all the panelists. Thank you, Laurence, for the able moderating. And thank you to your organization team in Bangladesh for hosting this session. It was a very good start of the day. For us and for people, a good investment in the middle of the night.
Yeah, thank you, Gerda. I think your 2 points, can't we do much better than 3 million, and can we do it faster? What's stopping us? How do we break through that barrier quickly and expand? And I think your challenge to that's a challenge to GAIN and CGF and others, and your challenge to ILO. How do we make this? How do we make decent nutrition part of decent work as a routine basis? Panelists, speakers, organizers, I have to give a shout out to my GAIN and CGF colleagues who've done an amazing job of organizing this. To be continued. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day. Bye.